We're obviously going to place you under arrest. There's a warrant for your arrest. We're going to take you to the jail. I told your mom that she can contact a bondsman.
A tearful teen is taken into custody after committing brutal crimes against girls he dated. He may look meek in police body camera footage, but police say he assaulted, raped, and even strangled fellow teenagers. And a surprise sweetheart deal took his prison term from a possible 70 years down to 0. We're taking a closer look at how the teen and his mom reacted to police taking him into custody. We're on the case presented by Law and Crime.
Also, I just want to point this out. He committed these crimes in his own home while his mother was present. She wasn't in the room, but she was there. One of his victims actually said that the mother heard her screaming, knocked on the door, and he told her everything was fine, and she just left. She just walked away because her baby boy said everything was fine while he was violently assaulting somebody and choking them. So, yeah, and he's not a little boy either. He's a big old boy. And as I said in some of the comments that I left on other people covering this story, if he can commit adult crimes, he should do adult time. Yeah, he's 17 years old when all of this happened. And all I want to say is his mom fucking heard that shit and she walked away. Put her in jail too. This bitch right here should be in fucking jail too.
I'm Chris Stewart. Hey, before we get into this episode of On the Case, I want to talk about our partner and sponsor, Upside. This is a free app that gives you cash back when you buy daily essentials like gas, a gallon of your first tank of gas. An Oklahoma high school baseball player's name and face are now known across the country, and it's not for good reason. In August, 18-year-old Jesse Mack Butler of Stillwater, Oklahoma, entered a no-contest plea to 11 heinous charges, including rape, attempted forced oral sodomy, and more. He was staring down a nearly 80-year prison sentence, but in a shocking twist, the court agreed to grant Butler youthful offender status, and instead of going to prison, Butler went home with instructions on how to complete counseling and community service.
Counseling and community service. They have put 13-year-old black children in adult prisons. But they don't put this 17-year-old child that committed forcible assault on 3 different people, one of them requiring surgery to her throat from being choked. But they don't put him in prison? But they've put literal 13-year-old children in prison, in adult prison. Before. Like, are you kidding me? This pisses me off to no end. Yeah, in Texas they wouldn't play. They wouldn't play about this because this is crazy. But they're in Oklahoma, so apparently they don't give a shit. I want to know who his parents know. I want to know what kind of connections they have, because he did some of this in a media room that they had in their home. So clearly they're rich. I want to know who his parents paid off. I want to see those bank statements. Because how much you want to bet they paid for their little boy to not have to go to jail? How much you want to fucking bet?
Requirements. Butler's exact treatment plan, it's sealed in the court record, but the district attorney's office released this statement, quote, "The youthful offender sentence imposed against Jesse Butler requires him to complete his rehabilitation plan successfully, including an aggressive schedule of therapy with a specialist in sex offender treatment, and should he fail, He faces reclassification as an adult and a sentence of 10 years in prison. The change in punishment sent shockwaves through the community. It devastated the two girls who had gone to school officials to report what Butler had done to them. A mom of one of the victims told the outlet Tulsa World that the families were completely against youthful offender status from the beginning and said that it was their understanding that the prosecutor trying this case would not accept a deal like that. Photos have been released showing one of the victims in the hospital after apparently repeated assaults by Butler. The victim's family says she ended up needing surgery because of severe damage to a vein in her neck.
That right there, that's crazy. I wanted to see her neck again. Great, it won't let me just go back to
apparently
that.
Repeated assaults by Butler. The victim's family says she ended up needing surgery because of severe damage to a vein in her.
So, when this happens, this means that he was doing what is called a blood choke, where he was squeezing the sides of her neck instead of pressing on the front, which if a person is going to practice choking or breath play safely, is what they do. He was pressing on the vein. So he caused damage to it because he was squeezing. Also, there was only 2 girls. I'm sorry, I thought it was 3 for some reason. But even then, this is 2 separate people. And not only that, but I think that they were significantly younger than him. Like, I know that one of them is, I think, like, maybe 15. But I think one of them was really young. I'm not totally sure, though. I've heard a lot of different things about this case because there's so much information coming out. And there's so many people covering it on TikTok. But this is upsetting.
Her neck. There are calls for the judge who approved Butler's deal, Special Judge Susan Worthington, to be reprimanded or removed for okaying this deal. Now, in just a moment, I'll talk to a judge.
People are outside of the courthouse actively protesting. They are so angry about this, and they have every right to be. This is upsetting. You're letting a violent offender walk free in our community. And I bet you fucking money if somebody took justice into their own hands, you would throw the book at them. But you gave this literal abuser just a free pass.
Judge who has advocated for youthful offender programs to discuss whether this one is a step too far. But first, I want to let you know what 2 official affidavits have to say about Butler's behavior and how he reacted when he found out he'd actually be taken into custody. According to the first affidavit, a 16-year-old identified by her initials LS told a school resource officer in September of 2024 that she dated Jesse Butler for a few months earlier in the year, and that during that time he physically and sexually assaulted her multiple times, including trying to rape her inside his car outside an ice cream shop the previous February. The affidavit reads, quote, LS reported she yelled and told him no repeatedly and tried to push him off of her, but was unable to overpower him. LS reported Butler told her he was sorry for what he had to do, but he had to do it. LS recalled hyperventilating because Butler intended to have sexual intercourse with her and she did not want to. According to
He said he was sorry for what he was about to do, but he had to do it. Had to do it? What the actual fuck? What level of incel is this? I need to know. It seems like the 4th level of hell. Good God.
LS, a woman must have heard her screaming because she walked up to the car and interrupted them. LS told police that Butler told her that if the police came, they would both be in trouble. He reportedly took her back to his home where her car was parked and tried to rape her again. The affidavit reads, quote, LS told Butler she needed to get home, but Butler pulled her on top of him and told her, you're not going until I'm finished. She said she was able to get away and go home, but this wasn't the only time that an adult may have witnessed Butler trying to assault LS. The teen says that she was at the Butler home in their movie room when Butler took his clothes off and tried to have sex with her. She says Butler's mom came to the door asking if everything was okay, but the affidavit doesn't say anything else about her reaction to what she might have seen or heard.
Just to be clear, she heard that little girl screaming for help, and she didn't do anything. You knew that this girl was in your home alone with your son in the movie room, and you didn't try to make sure that he wasn't trying to do anything inappropriate. You were totally fine with him having a girl in that room with the door closed. Why? That was always the rule when I was a teen, was that the door had to stay open. There are no closed doors. So you're just letting your kid hang out with their partner, potential partner, whatever, alone in your home? Yet none of this sits right with me, and it feels like the mom knew more, and she just let it happen because she didn't care, or because she would do anything for her son. I have so many feelings in my body, and all of them are not good.
In late February of 2024, Butler reportedly strangled her because she refused to have sex with him. The affidavit says, quote, LS reported she was hyperventilating and then recalled her vision being blurry and she was dizzy. She reported her head immediately hurt and she was confused about what had occurred. She was scared of Butler, but when she regained consciousness, Butler was laughing at her. Following this incident, LS reported she had a handprint and an injury on her neck. Butler
That was so bad she had to have surgery. And I hate that we keep seeing photos of him. I don't want to fucking look at him. I don't want to look at him. He's a goddamn monster.
Butler and LS apparently broke up in March 2024, and he started dating a girl identified as KS, and his disturbing and aggressive behavior allegedly continued. A second affidavit details the assaults KS says she suffered during the relationship. Quote, KS reported Butler had left bruises on her hips from squeezing her so tightly. KS reported the intercourse was extremely aggressive, but she reported she quickly stopped fighting it because Butler would overpower her and hurt her to get his way. KS explained that she learned what to and what not to do to avoid being hurt by Butler. According to KS, Butler would pin her down and she was physically unable to get him off of her. KS stated this would often lead her to hyperventilate, which Butler thought was funny.
So he is a violent offender. I just want to keep reiterating the level of violence that this 17-year-old child used on his fellow classmates to overpower them, and that little girl saying that she quickly learned how to not get hurt by him. You hear this a lot from victims of domestic violence, saying that they learned quickly how to stay on their good side, and they knew how to not anger them so that they wouldn't have any issues. This is the same thing, and you will see it time and time again. And it's really disappointing that nobody cared. And this is just a child.
According to the affidavit, Butler also strangled KS so long that she eventually passed out. She reported she woke up on the floor of the living room in a home where she was house sitting. She claims Butler was livid, that she wouldn't have sex with him in someone else's home, so she says he raped her instead. Later that same week, KS reported that Butler choked her again, and it's for a sick reason. The affidavit says, quote, KS stated Butler told her he wanted to strangle her so he could film it on his phone. And if he could...
So he could film it on his phone? Are you fucking kidding me?
Couldn't believe it. Police found that video on Butler's phone, which showed him choking KS until she passed out. Butler was charged in March 2025 with 10 counts. An 11th was eventually tacked on when he reportedly violated a protective order. And we got our hands on body camera footage from Stillwater Police that shows officers arriving at the Butler home and taking the teary-eyed young man into custody.
Of course he fucking cried. Of course he cried, because he only cared about himself. He only cared about him. And it's a story as old as time, right? And now he's gotten away with it. So what's going to stop him from doing it again? He already did it twice to 2 different girls for no good fucking reason. If you don't give him any consequences, you're not going to deter him from ever doing it again. This kid is a literal fucking monster. But as we've seen with several serial killer cases, it always takes so much more for the police to give a shit. It takes even more for the legal system to do anything. And of course, they don't put too much stock in it because all of his victims are living for now. But if he is strangling people, strangulation is its own thing in the legal code because it is also, it can be attempted murder, right? Because if you're strangling someone, the likelihood that you are going to kill them raises to the highest levels. That is why they warn domestic violence survivors that if your perpetrator has choked you, the likelihood that they will kill you is extremely high. So the fact that he is committing these violent assaults and using strangulation to overpower these young women, it means that the likelihood he will kill them is high. He has no regard for their life. And you just let him walk away. So the next victims are going to go through so much worse because he doesn't give a fuck. He clearly got away with it. He's not going to care. And he's definitely not going to fucking stop. Nobody made him.
We're ready to obviously tell our story too.
Yeah.
Jess is
To obviously tell our story, I'm going to punch her in the back of the head. I'm sorry, that's not professional. But you know what? I don't care. This makes me so angry. Because it's like, these girls needed a voice, and you're sitting out here, I need to tell my story. What story is there when they have literal documented physical injuries from your child? Like, it's not like he pulled a girl's pigtails on the playground. He physically assaulted them. Like, what the fuck do you mean tell your story? No one wants to fucking hear from you. Shut up and send your bastard child to fucking jail where he belongs.
Mom. Open the door. It's me.
And if you'll just have him step out.
Okay. Give me your wallet and phone and stuff. So, okay. Your what?
They're in the car.
Well, okay, it's fine. It's not locked or anything, is it? Okay.
I don't want to hear you fucking blubbering. You are almost a grown-ass man. I don't want to hear your fucking blubbering. You are an abuser. Okay? You committed violent SA. I don't want to hear your fucking crying, you pussy-ass bitch. I don't want to hear it.
So, can you tell him what you just told me, or?
Yeah, so we're here. We're obviously going to place you under arrest. There's a warrant for your arrest. We're going to take you to the jail. I told your mom that she can contact a bondsman, and you shouldn't be very long.
It's okay. It's okay. Get your fucking hands off him. He is not a little boy. Okay? He is not some innocent child you need to protect. He's a literal fucking predator. I don't care. There will never be a level where this is okay.
But there just is a process for paperwork and stuff. But right now you do have to come with us, and I do have to put you in handcuffs. So turn around for me.
You have to put him in handcuffs?
Yes, the fuck they do. You have to put him in handcuffs? Well, considering that this police officer is a woman and he has physically assaulted 2 different people through brute force, overpowering them, abso-fucking-lutely they need to put him in handcuffs. Jesus.
You know we're doing this.
The level of boy mom I'm getting from this woman is fucking insane.
Yeah.
I'll get you out. For me? Alright, stay silent. Rick knows about this. Candy's on this. Dad's on his way. We're coming to get you, okay? Just stay strong, okay? Say your prayers.
Say your prayers. If there is a God above, he will strike you down. If there is a higher power, it will take you the fuck out of the gene pool, you absolute piece of fucking shit. Fuck you and your stupid ass mom. Look at this bitch. Watching them put handcuffs on him. Probably worried that they're going to be too tight. He choked 2 people. I don't care if his cuffs are too tight.
Okay, so he's going to go right to the city of Stillwater jail, and if you'll just contact her, then she does this all the time. She knows what to do.
Yep.
Make sure
Okay.
she knows Stillwater Police Department, not a county.
Yeah.
Stillwater Police Department.
we're the ones
On
that-
Lewis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let them know that
perfect.
we're the ones that picked him up.
And
They
when
don't-
we say we are the police.
Stillwater PD.
Stillwater PD.
Yeah,
Okay.
that way they don't think he went like straight over and he's over at the county.
Awful experience for a child.
Is his mom following them saying this is an awful experience for a child? Is that what she's saying? Hey, you know what's an awful experience? 2 little girls coming to your house to hang out with your son and you allowing them to be SA'd in your home violently while you knock on the door and ask if everything's okay. That is a horrifying experience for a child. Other people trusted you to protect their kids and you allowed your predator son to assault them. They shouldn't even have given this fucking monster a bond. They should have kept him in prison until his court date. They gave him a bond. He was out in a few hours.
Are you gonna pass the people? Yeah. Gonna pat you down and spread your feet for me. Nothing on your side.
Love you, Jess. See you in a bit.
Butler was released on a $25,000 bond when he entered his no contest plea over the
Look at this fucking bitch with his stupid glasses. I hate it. This stupid fucking glasses. And you know, this is them sitting at the courthouse, I believe. So they're at the courthouse waiting for your literal fucking rape trial and you're just wearing these stupid ass glasses? What a fucking loser.
summer, the mom of LS shared her victim impact statement online, and it says in part, quote, "I've had to carry this weight while going to school, trying to act like I'm okay. I've woken up from nightmares that make me feel like I'm being attacked all over again. I've had to explain bruises, explain silence, explain why I started isolating from people who loved me. You didn't just strangle me with your hands, you strangled my voice, my joy, my ability to feel safe in my own body. I will never forget the night you strangled me unconscious because I said no. The moment changed my life. A medical professional later told me that I was just 30 seconds away from dying. 30 seconds. If you had just kept your hands on my neck just a little longer, I wouldn't be standing here today." That wasn't just a scare. It was a near-death experience. You didn't just hurt me, you nearly killed me. LS also addressed Butler's mom and dad in her statement, saying, quote, to Jesse's parents, I don't know what you know. I don't know if you heard me crying through the walls or noticed how your son treated me when no one was looking, but I hope you hear this now. Your son hurt me in ways that cannot be undone, and I need you to understand that your silence, your protection of him, or even your denial, that would hurt too, because someone should have stopped this. Someone should have seen the bruises and the fear.
That right there is what pisses me off most, because his parents, you know that they don't give a shit. It's very clear by the way that his mom was like, we need to tell our story too. Bitch, there is no side to your story. Your kid is a fucking monster and you enabled it. He was 30 seconds away from killing someone in your home that he was assaulting, and you knocked on the door to ask if everything was okay, and you didn't go in to check. You just took your child's word for it. And this little girl was sobbing, begging him to stop, choking her unconscious. Like, something is seriously wrong with this kid for sure, that he thinks that this is okay, that he said, I'm sorry, I have to do this, only to then turn around and do it to another girl. Something is messed up for sure, and he should get treatment for it behind bars. He should not have to be society's problem. Okay? This is fucking Brock Turner all over again. And if he's going to get let out, then he needs to get the Brock Turner treatment. People take photos outside of Brock Turner's home and follow him to his new job. They follow him. They take photos of him. There are Reddits dedicated to keeping up with his every move. And it is largely hosted by women who want to feel safe in the city where he is. He can't go to a bar without having groups of women screaming at him to get out. And if this child is going to get the same treatment because he has a bright future ahead of him because of fucking sports, then that needs to happen to him too. He needs to be followed everywhere he goes, and the general public needs to keep fucking tabs on him and warn people when he is nearby. They need to embarrass him. They need to humiliate him. They need to make him feel this fucking big, because that's what he is. Because if the justice system isn't going to protect people, then others have to.
My colleague, Law and Crime's Jesse Weber, recently sat down with Justin Shepard, known on social media as Just in the Nick of Crime, who did some of the first reporting on this story and spoke with people in Stillwater.
What have you learned here about how this is even possible? Because I will tell you, there is a lot of speculation online right now that the Butler family may have connections that may have helped him get this so-called sweetheart deal. We couldn't confirm that. What can you tell us?
So I've spoken with some of the families as well of both victims who came forward against Jesse. There is a third victim who, if she hasn't come forward, but can you blame her when you look at this as the justice that they get?
So there was 3 victims. Okay, so I was right. There were 3 victims, but only 2 wanted to report. The other didn't want to come forward, which, seeing how they failed these other 2, I can understand why.
So there's a third victim. And kind of like you said, the speculation is that Jesse Mack Butler's father is a man by the name of Mack Butler. And he was the head of football operations at OSU for, I forget how many years, but for a pretty long time. He's, kind of a staple in that community. And when we're talking about Stillwater, Oklahoma, we're talking about OSU, for people who don't know, Stillwater is the town that Oklahoma State University is in. So there's a lot of things tied to that. Mack Butler, it seems that he grew up there. His wife currently works for OSU. His daughter works for the public school system there. He was apparently had been hired as like a coach of some kind for Stillwater High School as well. So somebody with deep-rooted ties into the community, and that then leads you to the judge in this case, or one of the judges in this case, Judge Susan Worthington. Between her and her father, the Worthingtons have had a hold on that bench for over 50 years. So while you can't necessarily say definitively that, hey, there's this connection here because he's deep-rooted in football, you know, she's a judge, they all grew up in the same town, that there's this kind of connection, but it's not really many difficult mental gymnastics to make that leap, right? That, hey, this is a town that requires the college, needs the college to survive. It's very deep-rooted into the system, that they're very much supportive of OSU, for this whole kind of thing to be very close-knit. And that's kind of what's being speculated, to the point that even it's now gotten the attention of one of Oklahoma's lawmakers, Representative J.J. Humphrey, who's also running for lieutenant governor. I'm actually going to be speaking with him later tonight, a little bit more details, but...
Yeah, and if you can, I don't know if you've spoken with them already, but Representative Humphrey is talking, my understanding is about a potential investigation into this. Is this true? Is there going to be a formal investigation into what happened here?
It sounds that way, yeah. He kind of looks at it from the same way. He was telling me that he's got a lot of background, in the court system and investigation before he got into politics. And he said, basically kind of the same thing that we were just talking about, that can he say definitively, or can he prove right now that there's a connection? No, but his exact words, but it sure as hell smacks like it, And so he's like, it's worth an investigation. So he's thinking about, wanting to put a grand jury together to do an indictment possibly. The conversation we had, which we'll go a little bit more in depth in, I don't know if that could bring additional charges against Jesse, because when you look again at the litany of charges, there are some that should have been on there that weren't. Like, in my opinion, as not a lawyer, why he wasn't charged with attempted murder.
That's what I keep wondering. Why was he not charged with attempted murder when he clearly was so close to killing this poor girl? What, like, I just want to reiterate again that they have charged literal children as adults. But I want you to just keep in mind that this kid has a winning complexion because he's white. Because we've seen this time and time again, that black and brown people, if their kids commit a crime, they throw the fucking book at them. But this kid commits 3 violent assaults. And it is known that he does this. And you just let him walk? Something doesn't smell right here. Okay? And if it smells rotten, it is rotten. But this kid, and he clearly plays sports. Right? Also like Brock Turner. Isn't that crazy? Brock Turner was given a free pass from his assault on that poor unconscious woman behind a dumpster because he had such a bright future ahead of him. Yeah, well, he got kicked out of the sporting league that they were so worried he was not going to be able to participate in. And because of that, he couldn't move on. So he has a fucking sad life. And he fucking deserves it. And I bet you money that they did it again. And I just want to say this, and I know that this pisses people off, but I have this opinion about sports. They're not fucking important. They're not important at all. Sports are supposed to be for fun, okay? But people make it too fucking serious, and we put too much money and effort into it. Sports are not important. They do not matter in any fucking way. They just don't. I don't care who's winning the teams, who's got all the fucking trophies. I don't care. It doesn't fucking matter. In the grand scheme of things, sports are not important. They don't mean shit. It's a goddamn game. So, to allow violent sexual predators to get away with these crimes because they play sports pisses me off. And it happens all the time, right? Floyd Money Mayweather beat the fuck out of his fiance, okay? Put her in the hospital. Barricaded them in a hotel room until police forcibly removed her, right? Had to be put in the hospital. He was arrested, bailed out, and fought in a pay-per-view match the next day. So I have no capacity to give a shit about sports when we are constantly devaluing the lives of women to allow men to play them. I just don't give a shit about sports. I don't fucking care. They don't matter. Okay? Especially when the people playing them are violent. They're violent abusers. Like, this is absolutely not okay. And you give them a fucking pass time and time again, and this is what you get. A kid who has no boundaries, no limits, and will hurt people because he can. And he's already done it 3 times. And he's gonna do it more.
When one of the girls was near death for what he did. And so those are kind of the conversations, but he feels that not just Stillwater, that entire county, Payne County, and then other places in Oklahoma, there's a lot of, I mean, he said it flat out, there's corruption, and he believes that this is no different than that.
He said that she was close to death, and this isn't her opinion, this isn't his opinion, this is the opinion of the medical professional that treated her. Okay, so let's just keep that in mind. A medical doctor told her she was close to death from the injuries she had suffered from him. And something that I will always bring up when somebody says, oh, well, I accidentally choked them to death in other cases. It can take 3 to 5, upwards of 7 minutes to choke a person to death. Okay? It takes that long for you to deprive the brain of oxygen enough for all the body impulses to stop. So, the fact that he was able to do this and she was close to death means that he did this for a while. This is a sustained assault. And he just gets to walk away. He gets to go back to his life. Are you fucking serious?
And it merits an investigation.
Joining us now to talk more about this case is Judge Brandon Birmingham from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, sir, for being with us here on Law and Crime. In this case, there's youthful offender status, which is what the defendant received in this case. Just first explain, I know this is something that you know well about in your district where you work as a judge. What is youthful offender status?
It is a status that's assigned really to those that are juveniles or on the cusp of being a juvenile, where the punishment for certain crimes is lesser than it would be for an adult. And they have certain programs, certain conditions under the law that the judge can order somebody to go through, and it's a little different for those that are younger than it is for adults.
How does that compare to, because in this case, the defendant was 18 years old at the time that this deal was reached, but it's not a situation where maybe he was 15 years old or 14 where this would be a juvenile case. How does the youthful offender status compare to what you might see in a juvenile case?
So this is very important. Youthful offender status is usually for like kids shoplifting. It's usually for kids committing petty crimes, right? And so the fact that he was committing extremely violent, heinous crimes and they were just like You were a kid. You didn't know any better. Yes, the fuck you did. Yes, he did. I don't want to hear it. This is for kids that are, like, stealing food. The fact that we have to explain that to lawmakers is insane.
It's just a function of punishment. I think there's the idea in assessing a punishment that, those that are younger are more likely to make mistakes and need to learn from those mistakes, as opposed to somebody who's, let's say, in their mid-20s or maybe in their 30s, or, that's an adult that we expect them to behave in a certain way. And there's, maybe not laws that are written in a formula, but I think when considering what a person's punishment ought to be, somebody's age and experience has always been taken into account.
In this particular case, this was a no contest plea, so this was a deal that was reached between the defense and the prosecution. For you as a judge, just when...
Against the wishes of the family, I just want to say that. The families of the victims told them they don't want that. They want him to be charged. And they did it anyway.
These cases go through, and what is your role in this? Because I think for there to be in a case like this where there is going to be criticism, and that's just the way it is, and I know with your job that there's always going to be criticism of the system in these types of cases. What is the job of a judge? What are you looking for if a prosecutor and a defense attorney come to you and say, we've reached this agreement that youthful offender status is what we're going to move forward with?
Well, the job of a judge really is to make sure that all of the processes are followed to a T, and that everybody, both sides has availed themselves to the opportunities under the law to be prepared and to have what they need in order to be prepared. So you're really at that point sort of an umpire that's just making sure that all the boxes have been checked. We do have the discretion and the ability to reject a plea, and if we reject a plea, then we don't get to just put our own stamp on it and say, I reject the plea and I'm going to sentence you to 50 years. Essentially what the rejection of a plea does is it takes everybody to square one and puts it on the trial docket. But that is an extraordinary remedy, and so what you're looking for at the plea is what information has led both sides to come to this agreement, and the judge has the ability, if they want to seek out that information. And because we do have the ability to say, no, we're not going to accept it. It's unjust, or it's unfair, or the process hasn't been followed.
And yet she didn't do that. The female judge in this case didn't do that. I wonder why. I wonder what was the catalyst for her just accepting this blindly. Does she have a history of just following whatever the prosecution does? Has she ever gone up against them in other cases? Or did she have some kind of monetary, reason to look the other way? That's what I want to know. I think we need to see some bank records. Okay? I think we need to see if there was any money flowing in any direction.
And in this case, Butler could have received, if the maximum, if he had gone to trial all the way through, the maximum would have been roughly 70 years in prison. Instead, through this youthful offender status, he is going to have a treatment plan that he has to go through with different requirements that he's going to have to meet. But you look at what he was accused of in this case, and it's very difficult to read through. It was violent. What are some of the factors that a prosecutor and the defense attorney you're working with, when determining that youthful offender status is a good resolution for this, how does maybe violent tendencies, the threat of maybe reoffending, how does that go into whether or not this person would be a good candidate for this, as opposed to what could have been, the good majority of his life in prison?
Yeah, you're looking at a prediction of what you think might happen in the future, essentially. That's one component of assessing punishment or an outcome in a criminal case. And one of the ideas is that somebody's history will indicate how they're going to react in the future. And so when you're saying, okay, does this person deserve a lighter sentence or rehabilitation, you're asking yourself first, can they be rehabilitated? And is there still hope for them to be rehabilitated? That's one component of a very complicated and nuanced issue. The other one, of course, is what are the facts of the case? In other words, if somebody could commit a horrible crime, they might have all the potential to be rehabilitated, but the crime itself is such that maybe that they just need to be punished. And there's always that tension between what's best for the defendant on the one hand, what's best for society, and then, of course, what's best for the victim and what their voice is and how that voice is heard in the sentencing process. But all of it, to go back to your first question, the lawyers are assessing their cases, and you know, there's strengths and weaknesses in every case, and allegations are allegations. You've got to eventually, if you're the prosecution, line up your proof and make sure that you're right, because you don't want to lose. You don't want to even go forward if you're not right. And so I think plea bargains are also a function of the quality of proof by view of how the lawyers assess their case. And so, unfortunately, with a plea bargain, the public doesn't always have all of the information because there's no trial. You know, and the trials, why I love trials so much is because you do get all the information. You get to see the witnesses, you get to judge their credibility, you get to see text messages or videos and all that. In a plea, the public really doesn't, so we are sort of left to speculate. But as a plea bargain, and somebody who's presided over thousands of them and done them myself, you know, plea bargains are functions of proof and your assessment of how strong your case is, whichever side that you're on.
And this is a case, and I think when you read the allegations against this defendant, you hear, you know, the victim impact statements. I mean, it's hard not to be emotional for what these girls had to go through. And I'm sure the judge who presided over this deal knew that there was probably going to be some criticism of it, considering there wasn't going to be 70 years or a period of time in adult prison because he's 18 years old.
Yeah, that's what everyone's mad about. You let a violent predator go. You just let him go. You let him go without even a slap on the wrist. You gave him therapy and rehabilitation. I can tell you, based on some of the things that I've seen, that the reason that this is so bad, the reason that this is so awful, is because he has done this to 3 different people, and it feels like he's not getting any punishment for it because you're pretending like he was some kind of helpless child. A helpless child doesn't physically overpower 3 people to sexually assault them. They just don't do that. He's not helpless. He is a grown man, and he has done something horrific. And even recorded himself doing something horrific. And you're going to tell me that you can just let him walk away after that? He recorded himself choking that girl, which, by the way, I'm sorry, I did get them mixed up. I said that you want to press on the throat. You do press on... Most people, they like blood chokes over air. I always get them confused. But even then, he was holding for so long. He was cutting off blood supply to her brain. He literally caused damage to the veins in her neck because of how violent he was being. And you just let him walk? Like, I need it to make sense. I need somebody to make sense of it. Because right now it seems like a miscarriage of justice at the highest level. And to hear them talk about, well, you don't get all the information with a plea bargain. I don't fucking need all the information. I saw the injuries to this girl. There are shared photos of her where she had to have surgery on her throat and her at the hospital. So she was hurt. She was violently injured. And then on top of all of this, let's just imagine this. She had to go to school with her assaulter. She had to go to school with the person who did this to her because he was still in school with her. At least as far as any information I've had. So you're telling me that she had to see him all the time and just go about her day like that was normal? Like, I've known grown women who couldn't even see a photo of the person who abused them without hyperventilating. My friend couldn't even look at photos from her wedding because the man who married them had assaulted her when she was a child. It is fucked. And so because of that, whenever she would look at her wedding photos, she would feel physically ill. And so what are these people supposed to do if you don't protect them? How are they supposed to feel? This woman let them down. And I don't care if we don't have all the information. I don't need all the information to know that this is a miscarriage of justice. It's very blatantly obvious that none of the people trying this boy gave a shit about the victims or what they went through. And they've made it so obvious.
Not asking your opinion of the decision for this to be youthful offender status, but just as a judge, I mean, it's so rare that we get to actually talk to someone who sits in the chair. How do you deal with some of those deals that may come across that you know are public, that may have criticism of it, and knowing that you're presiding over something that's probably going to get a lot of heat from the public and from people? Yeah, there is probably information we don't know in this case, but you know that there's going to be a lot of frustration from the public when it goes through.
And I've been in that situation before, many times, some of it very public settings and some of it not public, but either way, you know as a judge that every decision you make, you're going to disappoint precisely half of the people that are looking back at you, and sometimes everybody. And so what you have to do is fall back on what your role is as a judge. And we are process followers. We make sure that the process is followed. We also make sure that everybody stays within their roles. And so that is procedural justice, procedural due process. And so we have to adhere to that. The public outrage is going to come. And we're not here to be popular. We're here to be stewards of the law. I think that, there's accountability for that too, in the sense that the decisions we make, we are not the end-all be-all. If there is something untoward that's gone on in any given case, there's a process in place, a review process. We answer, unlike the Supreme Court justices of the United States, we do have a reviewing body that looks at whether we did something that was outside of our processes. And we have to be held accountable for that, and we should be. There should be a transparency. I guess the line is that we could never be held accountable for a decision that we make within the realm of discretion. We can always be held accountable for decisions we make that are outside of that process, outside of the law, whether it's ex parte communications, bribery, things like that. That is where we can be held accountable. We can be held to answer for that. I think we're seeing now, there's a call for an investigation, I think, into some of, what caused this plea to happen in Oklahoma. And I would hope that to the extent that it can be transparent and accessible to the public, and I'm sure everybody involved is going to take that responsibility very seriously and justify why they did it, or at least make sure that there was nothing outside of that zone of discretion that played into this.
For Butler, once he finishes the treatment plan that he's going to be going through, is there any sort of monitoring of him that could continue on? Like, I think of someone who, if he was 26 years old, he goes to prison, he might be a registered sex offender when he comes out, and he has to follow those guidelines. In many states, it would be for the rest of your life.
Yeah, so he also doesn't have to register as an offender. He doesn't have to go on the registry. And I saw one woman earlier who was talking to a news station there in Oklahoma, and she said, what is the point of having a list of violent sexual offenders if you're not going to put them on it? What is the point in having it if you're not going to put someone like this on it? And that is a good fucking question. What was the point? What was the point in any of this if you weren't going to actually do something? Exactly. He gets a treatment plan. It's not a treatment plan. It is supposed to be a consequence. It's supposed to be a punishment. He's supposed to be getting charged with a crime. But he's not. And he's going to get to walk away. I don't care what they thought was going to happen. This is what happened.
In a youthful offender status situation like this, once he finishes the treatment plan, what would happen next?
Well, if he finishes it successfully, he doesn't go to prison. I think that one of the parts of this is that he has to complete it, and if he doesn't, then he's looking at, I believe, up to 10 years in prison as a result of that. So there is some accountability for him to finish, but if he finishes it successfully, then he's off of what is very similar, I guess, to like a probation. He's off of that status, and he's free to live out the rest of his life.
And and obviously too, I mean, anytime you Google his,
he's free to live out the rest of his life and assault other women. You literally just gave him a pass to go and assault other women.
name, for the rest of his life, there's a weight that comes with that, because he will be associated, with this case, which is so difficult to hear. When it comes to recidivism rates, and I know that's always a big topic of conversation. I mean, how?
That's another thing that I love to bring up with these cases when it is sexually based. Only 10 years when he was facing possibly 80. Just wanted you to keep that in mind. If he doesn't do this rehab shit. But recidivism rates are very important when talking about sexual offenses, because sexual offenses have the highest recidivism rates of any crimes. The highest. Because once a person has established a sexual pattern, they are not able to break that. Does that make sense? It's kind of like a habit that you can't get rid of. And so the fact that his rhythm with this is now set through violent sexual encounters, violent offenses against other people, then every sexual encounter for him will probably always have to involve a level of violence. And because of that, he is going to do this again. He's going to do it again because he wants to enjoy it. This is what he enjoys. This is how he gets off. And because of that, you're going to see him do this again and again and again. And it is not going to matter. And because of that, we're going to see him probably kill someone in the very near future. He was already very close. And then they're going to give a shit once somebody's dead. But living victims can heal. Living victims can heal, and dead ones can't. And that's the only time that they really care, is when there's a body. And that's really unfortunate. Because the sexual assault of that body is not put up to the same level as their murder. But it does the same thing to a person, because people who have been violently assaulted, as a person who has been assaulted before, I can tell you it changes the way that you behave around others. It changes the way that you feel in your own body. And you let the person who did this walk away with no consequences. Except he had to go to therapy and clean up some trash? Are you fucking kidding me? The recidivism rates, the reason that when it is a violent sexual assault, they bring up recidivism rates is because of how likely it is that they will reoffend. Once you have established a sexual pattern that involves this level of violence, it will continue, and it will have to continue. It is the only way that this person can operate sexually. Exactly. The victims don't get care, but he's getting care. If you want to give him therapy in jail. Give him group therapy with other violent offenders. Let him see what his future would look like. Because he needs to be forced into a room with people who do the shit he does so that he can find out what his life is going to look like on the inside, because he will eventually end up in jail, right? He has already established a level of violence that is going to end someone's life. So he is going to kill someone. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And they just gave him every reason to keep going. Because who's going to fucking stop him? Who's going to stop him? Nobody. It's very clear that no one is. Not the police, not the justice system, not his own goddamn parents, not even the victims who tried to physically fight him off. And he's a big ass kid. Right? Well, I say kid because he's significantly younger than me, but he's an adult. But he's a big ass boy, right? He's well over 6 foot. And he's not tiny, he's not weak. So he has literally set a precedent for himself. This is who he is. He is in the body of a man. He committed the crimes of a man. Why is he not getting charged like a man? This case sets a precedent. And we already saw it with Brock Turner. We're going to see it again. I'm going to keep bringing that up because it is literally the same fucking thing over and over again. And it's disgusting that we have to keep seeing this. It's like we're not learning. It's like we're not evolving because we keep fucking doing it. It's the same patterns going over and over and over again. Is why I didn't report what happened to me. Because who the fuck would care? Clearly not the police. Clearly not the justice system, so what was the point? Me and they said it was 97% of women have been sexually assaulted, propositioned, or sent inappropriate material against their will. 97% of women. And that is why cases like this get under people's skin so much, because these levels are so high and the justice system continues to not do shit about it.
Effective, not speaking in terms of this case, but just generally speaking, are these youthful offender status cases?
Well, they can be very effective in the right environment and for the right crime. You know, I actually started a youthful offenders program here in Dallas, and it was geared towards those 17 to 25-year-olds that did dumb things when they were 17 to 25. And I don't mean to say that this is one of those things. You know, they're geared towards certain crimes, but with the right environment, you try to seek out the root causes of the problems. Now, that could be substance abuse, that could be mental health, and if you can treat those problems, then you go a long way towards making sure this doesn't happen again. But that it should not be used as a way to get out from under accountability and punishment in the appropriate circumstance. So,
notice that he said what he said there. This is for kids suffering from circumstances probably against their will, where they've started to abuse substances, where they've had different things happen to them that they've gotten to this level, that now they're in jail. Okay? And I also don't like that youthful offender status goes up to 25. It should be 17 and below, and that's it. Okay? It just should be. I want to know how many of these cases have been extended to people who aren't white. I would like to see the statistics on youthful offenders and how many of them are just white kids. Because, as I brought up earlier, black and brown kids are significantly more likely to get harsher prison sentences than white kids for similar crimes. I can't remember the statistic, but if you have a child and they did this, they did a jury pool and everything, where they gave 2 sets of crimes. One's with a black child or a Hispanic child, and one with a white child, where the crimes are exactly the same, sometimes a little less in the favor of, the black children, or the black or brown children, sorry. And the jury was more likely to give harsher sentences to people of color than they were to the white kids. And it is something that we see all the time, right? How harsh crimes are when the offender is not white. How many times have we seen this over and over and over again? Eventually we have to get to a point where we stop. But I can bet you money that if this kid wasn't white or a baseball player, they wouldn't give a shit about trying to save him from jail.
It's that tension that we talked about right at the very beginning. What's best for the defendant, what's best for the public, and of course, what's best for the victim in their day in court as well.
Yeah, and this is just it's a sad case. You think of these 2 young girls, the strength and courage they had to come forward. I know their parents have been frustrated with this. We'll see how any sort of investigation plays out in it. And one more, actually, as I think about that, if there is a plea deal that the public's unhappy with, like in this one, is there any way other than an investigation to find something that happened outside of the law, any way to do any sort of take back on that deal and re-sentence someone like Butler in this case?
No, once the plea is done, it's final. There's going to be no. There's certain procedural things that would have to happen in order for somebody to grant a new trial. Public outrage is not one of them, and so this is done. It appears. Maybe if there's another victim, and maybe that's a whole new case. But for accountability, it's going to have to come through a judicial conduct, something like that. It's going to have to come through. An investigation. I understand that one of the lawmakers in Oklahoma has called for an investigation that would involve the grand jury, and they have at their disposal tools to subpoena witnesses and to see if, again, going back to what we talked about a little while ago, is did something happen in this case that was beyond the scope of discretion? Is there some kind of an outside influence, like ex parte communications is the most obvious one that might come up, that would cause those that made the decisions to be held accountable in some way? And how does that happen? That happens usually during the reappointment process.
So ex parte communications, I just want to make this clear, is when, at least to my understanding, when one of the lawyers speaks with maybe the judge without the other present. So one of them isn't privy to information, or somebody contacts the judge or the other lawyer without informing one of them, right? So it's basically somebody's left out of the loop. And so I just wanted to make that clear because they keep bringing it up. I want to make sure people know That's what that means.
I know that in Texas we elect judges, and if this happened and the public was outraged, then they would remove me from the bench. I could be sanctioned and
Good.
removed from the bench by the Judicial Conduct Commission as well. And so that's the accountability that could happen as a result of the investigation. And then, of course, if a grand jury comes back and they find evidence to believe there's probable cause that somebody committed a crime, then they can return an indictment, and that would open up a whole new avenue of accountability as well.
So I just want to tell a little story real fast. This happened to a judge, a female judge, who was presiding over a custody case of a young woman and her young daughter. And the mom had to be like searched for some reason. So they take her out of the room to do it. And when they do that, the person doing the search touches her inappropriately. And so when she comes back into the court, she tries to raise her concerns with the judge, saying, I didn't feel comfortable with the way that was conducted, because she was brought into a room alone with this man, and she felt that she was touched inappropriately when he was supposed to be searching her, that he had groped her. And so she brings this up to the judge, and then one of the other, I don't know if he was a bailiff or a police officer that was in the room, said, you're not going to say stuff like that and make allegations. We're taking you to jail. And so they're handcuffing her, and she said, please, I'll take it back. I just want to leave with my daughter. And he said, no, you're going to jail. And so he takes this woman to jail for trying to report that she was assaulted by a court officer. And so people were outraged, okay? And there was a lot of outrage. And the judge was too busy sitting back, watching it happen and doing nothing, while talking to the victim's child. So that judge was sanctioned. That officer was fired and investigated for, the inappropriate nature of this. But he was too busy defending his co-worker to hear this woman out, that she was uncomfortable with the way she was being treated and touched by a court officer. And you're gonna make it her fault? Yeah, that's what I felt when I watched it. This was on Court Cam on A&E. You can watch their episodes on YouTube, by the way, but it was insane. And if I find it, I'll show it to you later on TikTok stream. But yeah, she was very upset. She was sobbing, and the judge was too busy sitting there talking to her young child, who they were taking away from her to put her mom in jail because her mom didn't feel comfortable with being assaulted. She wanted to report it, and look at what happened. These young girls reported what happened to them, and nobody did anything either. Isn't that weird?
And we'll see how this case plays out. Judge Brandon Birmingham from Dallas, Texas. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to be with us on Law and Crime. It's great to have you.
It's always good to be here. Thank you very much.
I love Law and Crime. I will say they do side a lot with the police. And I don't think that that's a good thing, but it happens. They try to be as unbiased as possible. That's another thing, but yeah.